Welcome to Pixel Pizza,
Did she say pizza?
your ultimate source for chiptunes, video game talk, and pepperoni. Delivered to you from Los Angeles and into the digital cyberspace of the 2020s.
Pizza power!
That's right, one super giant pizza.
I want a large, thick crust with double cheese, ham, pepperoni.
Hey, where's my pizza?
Pizza time.
Hear ye, hear ye. By order of the king, I shall now read today's town decrees. Pixel Pizza will be resuming today with its season 2. That is right, gentlemen, ladies, townsfolk of all shapes and sizes. It will be foretold that today's guest is an excellent figure. Okay, I'm dropping the act. I'm excited because this is a guest we've been wanting to have for a very long time here on Pixel Pizza, ever since the Boston original run. We tried to have him on the season finale, he called in, there were some technical difficulties, but we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the bad vibes because our guest today hails from gaming's biggest up-and-coming set of content creators, Good Vibes Gaming. You know, I've been a long-time fan of them ever since they launched back in the good old year of 2020. But this guest's history goes long before that. He has been a journalist. He has been a game producer. He has been a writer, a marketer. He has done all these super awesome things. And I'm very excited to be speaking with him. That's right, if you have not guessed by now, I am talking about the #1 Mega Man fan himself, Ash Paulsen. Get ready, because we're going to have a blast today. Excited to finally be speaking with Ash on this show. And the musician who we're going to be spotlighting today is called Alone. But don't worry, you're not alone here. We all love you. The track that we will be beginning with from Alone, the chiptune track, is called Charming the End of Time. Take a gander at that one, and we'll be back with Ash Paulsen. Yeah! Welcome back to Pixel Pizza. You just listened to the track Charming the End of Time from Alone, our chiptune artist of the week. And now we are going into the beginning of our interview segment for the show. I'm very excited to be speaking with this guest. You may have seen his work in Udon art books, from some work on Way Forward as a producer, as well as ShiftyLook, and his content creation on GameXplain and now Good Vibes Gaming. This is Ash Paulsen. How you doing, Ash?
I'm doing great. Much better now that I'm here. How are you?
Same here, yeah.
It's been too long since we've gotten to chat. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on as a guest. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons I brought back this show, which I did like in college, I think I told you, was to reconnect with people who I haven't spoken to in a long time, because everybody I've spoken to in this time has gone on to do some really awesome things within the industry, and you are no exception.
Well, that's kind of you to say. I don't really feel like I've gone on to do anything amazing, but to hear you tell me that is very kind of you. And I find that I often don't see myself the other way other people say they see me. So it's flattering to hear that, because it doesn't really feel like I've done all that many amazing things, but I'll take the compliment.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's hard on the other side.
Yeah.
So I like to start off my show with the question, what was the moment in your life when you knew you wanted to work in video games?
Oh man, I mean, that probably, we're probably talking early childhood. I mean, I got an NES when I was 4 years old, I believe. And the first game I ever played was Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, the combination cartridge. And as soon as I had that controller in my hands, it just felt like I had come home, I guess, from what I could remember as a little small child, of course. But I just loved games. And I think maybe it was probably closer to when I started subscribing to video game magazines at the time, like EGM and Nintendo Power and things, that I realized, reading that first generation of game, or earlier generation of game journalists, that I realized, oh man, this is something I want to do. Like I was always growing up, I was very well-spoken, well-read, well-written, and I just had a gift of the gab, I guess, and a gift for writing. And so I just kind of took it upon myself to start doing my own writing in my middle school, high school years. And that just kind of led into a broadcast journalism major in college. And unfortunately, by the time I finished college, magazines weren't really that in vogue anymore. Everything had kind of moved to the internet and content creation based stuff. And so I kind of had to shift that expectation a little bit. But yeah, I think it was probably when I started, I would look forward so much every month to each new issue of, like, again, EGM Squared, Nintendo Power, Game Informer, Game Pro, not as much. I didn't think they were as good, but I would love that once a month window that I would get into these games that I love so much and what was coming down the road. And I realized, that I know so much about this stuff. I live and breathe this stuff. I should also be somebody who is reporting on this stuff and teaching other people about this stuff. And yeah, so I guess it was probably in my childhood, maybe 7, 8, 9 years old, that I started really getting into the idea of talking about and writing about and covering video games as, for a living, whatever that even means these days, because there isn't that much money in it. So it's not the only thing I do.
Totally, yeah. I definitely remember early on being inspired by Nintendo Power 2. I remember I loved everything that Alan the Slime wrote.
Yep. Nintendo, like, there was a certain switching point with Nintendo Power where, like, up to a certain point in their run, I liked them but didn't love them. But then something switched in the editorial direction of the magazine, and it became a little bit more EGM-esque, a little bit edgier, a little bit more, a little bit less like a Nintendo mouthpiece, and more kind of like an actual critical, independent body that had just a bit more of an edge to it that I really liked. And that's the version of Nintendo Power that I really love.
Yeah, I remember when, I think it was like the Twilight Princess issue, where they changed like all the visuals, they changed yeah, there was definitely a shift in the writing style. And at first I was like, whoa, this is different. But yeah, as I dug into it,
Hmm.
it was totally really interesting to see more of like the individual personalities of the writers come out when
Right,
they weren't
right,
like shackled to just promoting stuff.
right.
Did you ever actually? I was a journalism minor in college, and I remember casually mentioning to a professor, "Oh, I'd love to do journalism for video games," and they
Hmm.
like immediately shut me down and were like,
Really?
"That's not journalism."
Oh,
Did
that's
that ever
funny.
happen to you?
No, I can't say that it did. My professors are always really supportive
Oh,
of what I wanted to do, and if anything, they were like, if there are any journalistic qualities lacking in video game journalism, you can be one of the people to help and bring those standards up. But I never had anybody like straight up say, "Oh, that's not real journalism. Your dream is stupid," and nothing like that. Thankfully, no, I've never been shut down like that. I think maybe it's just I do remember some vague uh, concerns expressed about game journalism not necessarily having the same level of standards as some more traditional arms of journalism, which isn't necessarily untrue. But at no point was it ever posed to me that no, it's not real journalism. That's not you're not that's not real writing. That's not real reporting. Nothing like that.
sure. Yeah. I mean, that's great. Anytime you can have teachers who really encourage you and push you to grow is amazing.
Yeah, I've been very lucky in that sense. I had some fantastic professors in college. One particularly great teacher in middle school. Um, I haven't had great teachers across the board, but the great ones that I've had have been truly top notch.
Totally.
Yeah.
So where did you go from there after you really started into content creation?
Well, it's just it's weird. My career has definitely been kind of a it has not been anything but a straight line. I mean, one of my first jobs out of college was I was just managing a yogurt store for a while, and then I went from there to Nickelodeon Animation of all places to be a production assistant. And I was there for about a year and a half. It wasn't a great experience for various reasons. There are people there that I still love, but it was very much there are so many people above you that and they want to stay where they are, that there's really no chance of you moving up from the bottom, no matter how well a job you do. And thankfully my boss was very transparent about that. And he's like, "Hey, you're doing a great job and you should be promoted, but you're not going to be because the people above you don't want to, they want to hang on to the jobs they have." And I'm like, okay. And then of course, anyone who's been a PA knows probably that when you're the PA, you're the bottom rung of the ladder and people will throw you under the bus just because they can, because you're a PA and nobody gives a damn. And you kind of have to take the blame for things that aren't necessarily your fault. And so some of that stuff was going on with me at Nickelodeon. I was not happy. And so from there, I was able to parlay what had up to that point been a kind of a repeat freelance gig with Udon into a full-time editing position with Udon. So I left Nickelodeon for Udon. And then, God, I was with Udon for almost a decade. And it was during that time that I kind of fell in with GameXplain as well. And so I was doing GameXplain on the side alongside Udon. And then eventually I left Udon to take up another production gig at a place called WhatPumpkin Games, which made the Homestuck game Hive Swap.
Oh yeah, I had a friend who worked on that for a little bit.
Oh, they were probably someone that I worked with directly because I was
Oh,
the lead producer on Hive Swap Act One. So they were
oh no kidding.
probably, yeah.
Elisa Menez.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yes, she's been on the show actually before.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, no,
Yeah, she's
she
great.
was great. That whole crew was wonderful. And then I eventually left because of some other behind the scenes stuff that I won't get into. But essentially, yeah. And then I just kind of bounced around from production gig to production gig while also sticking with GameXplain and doing that because it made me happy. It's what I love doing. And then the whole GameXplain thing happened, as I'm sure you well know. I won't go into that here, but that happened, and I had entreated Derek and Steve. I'm like, "Hey guys, if we're gonna get out, we got to get out while the getting's good, and take back some of our power and do something that's really for us, as opposed to for something that somebody else will always own, and give us more creative control. We actually earn the money we make; it's ours, which is nice." And yeah, so about a year and a half ago now, we started Good Vibes Gaming and left GameXplain behind. And now that's kind of where I'm at now. And doing that alongside my day job, which is right now I work on indie video game PR for a UK-based company called Renaissance PR. And so I help manage their social media and do their content creator outreach and stuff like that for certain indie games.
Wow, that is a journey. That is
It
awesome.
is. It's been, like I said, it's been anything but a straight line, and which is why, like, I'm always so flattered when people ask me for advice. I'm like, I wish I had advice to give, but I feel like I even now am just kind of flying by the seat of my pants and just don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure it out every day as I go.
Yeah, I hear you. So, I mean, yeah, something that I find so interesting is you've been, so many different places, done so many different kinds of roles: editing, producing, reporting, video making, PR. I think as I was like writing these questions, I was thinking you are kind of like Mega Man. You are you take on these different skills at different points and use them to progress.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like how would you say you acclimate to taking on new skill sets?
I honestly don't. I couldn't tell you. I just do it because I have to. Really, I wouldn't say I'm as adept at Mega Man. His whole thing is being able to copy and then use other robot masters as weapons for himself, and he's just as good at it as they are, if not better. For me, I don't feel like I'm as good as anywhere near as good as people who are experts in their crafts. Like they are only video editors or they are only producers. For me, I've done it all, but that doesn't mean I'm the best at it all. I mean, it means I feel like I'm kind of good enough, but I don't really feel like I, with certain exceptions. I think I'm a good producer. I think I'm really good in front of the mic now. I've had a lot of practice being in front of the mic, and I want to start doing more voice acting and such. And I think I'm a great editor. I'm a great copy editor, writer, but it's someone who's kind of worn so many different hats. I've never felt like I've had that chance to really dig in and become the best at that one thing, so which is, I guess, both a good and bad thing. It's a double-edged sword. It would be nice to kind of have the confidence that comes with knowing that, man, I am the number one or one of the top people in my craft because I only do this one thing and that's it. But the way my career has gone, I've done a lot of different things, and I'm great to pretty good at all of them, but I'm not like the top in that one thing, right? And so it's both a good and bad thing. I'm versatile, which I think is a great thing to be and a great skill to have. And I can wear a lot of different hats. But when it comes to just having the confidence and the knowledge that I am the best at something, I don't really have that because of just the scattershot nature of my career thus far and the jobs that I've held and the positions that I've held.
Sure, yeah, it is. I can definitely relate to that. I've hardly had a straight line
Yeah.
myself, and when I see people who have put years and years into stuff that I'm just dabbling in, it's crazy. It's
Yeah, it's like, I will never, unless some sort of miracle happens, I will never be like an expert video editor the way Brandon is at Good Vibes Gaming. It's like I'll always be a good enough video editor to do what I need to do, but I'm never going to have that level of mastery that I feel like that career editors have or whatever, people who do one thing and focus on that one thing. I'm never going to have that level of mastery of anything that I can think of because I don't really want to do one thing,
Yeah, it can be restricting for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what was it like for you going from covering games and sort of reporting on them to working on them in the trenches?
If anything, it just gave me a greater respect for both sides of that line. I think working on games and being on dev teams and working as a producer in the trenches has made me a better content creator and journalist, whatever you want to call me. Someone who covers games. I think having that hands-on experience on the other side of the line has made me a better content creator because I have empathy. It's taught me empathy for how unbelievably difficult and thankless video game development is. So many of those keyboard warriors on Resetera or NeoGAF or GameFAQs or whatever, they all seem to think there's just a big red make game button that you press and games make themselves. And that's just, it could not be farther from the truth. Video game development is hard work. And the vast majority of the money goes to the suits at the top of each company. They don't go to the people in the trenches. You know, they're, as you know, they're paid pennies basically and treated horribly. And they're put through crunch. And it's not a healthy place to work, the game industry. And so I think having been through that has helped teach me hardcore empathy for people who are in the trenches of game development. Not that I was ever the kind of person to get upset over things like delays or whatever now, but like certainly now I'm like, hey, if something's delayed or whatever the reason, take all the time you need. I would rather a game come out 3 years later than for anyone to have to go through crunch or work for overtime. And just, you know, to me, the people behind the games are more important than the games themselves. I'm not sure that that's something I'd necessarily know or feel if I hadn't had that hands-on experience in the trenches, right? I guess it goes the other way too, right? Yeah. It's a two-way street, because I think, you know, working as long as I have in video game journalism and content creation has also made me a better producer, because I know, you know, it's not just I'm making games because I fell into something that I otherwise don't care about. I live and breathe the language of games. So as a producer, I know what players are going to be looking for. I know what's going to bother players if I see something that's like, oh, that's going to piss people off. So I have, you know, it's also almost more of a consultant type thing. I've become a little bit of a consultant in positions like that, because I'm drawing upon my natural experience, not only as a content creator and journalist, but also as a player myself. And so those two, being on both sides of that developer content creator line, they both informed each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can absolutely see how they would.
Yeah.
And I guess more back on the content creation side, when you're playing a game for a review or a preview or something, what are like the first things that you look for that sort of inform your opinion on the game?
I mean, it really depends on the game. It's, you know, there's not a one size fits all approach to reviewing every kind of game, right? I mean, if I'm reviewing a rhythm game, I'm going to be worried about different things than I would be if I was reviewing an RPG versus an action game or a platformer or whatever. So it really is just, it's kind of goes down to a game by game basis, and there's not really any one thing. I just kind of play the game, start taking notes, see how I feel about kind of how everything's coming together. And if there's a very specific pain point, I'll certainly explore that more and see why it is that I feel that's a pain point. And is there anything the game is trying to do to mitigate that? But there's really no specific approach I take in general to every game. It's just kind of, you got to feel it out on a game by game basis. And, you know, one of the more recent reviews I did was Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania.
Oh, right.
And for that, you know, I really prioritize feel, controls, responsiveness, aesthetics, because that obviously is way more important in a game like that than something like story or characters, or, you know, it really depends on the game. Same thing with something like Mega Man 11. I care about Mega Man lore because I'm like a hardcore Mega Man nerd, but I realize that the vast majority of people are not playing Mega Man games for the story. So when I was playing Mega Man 11 and reviewing that, I was like, okay, I do wish there were certain things the story was doing that was more interesting to me as a lore nerd, but I'm not going to dock the game for it in a general sense, because most people aren't, you know, they care. Is it a good Mega Man game? Is it a good platformer? Is it fun to play? Does it have good controls? That's the stuff that matters. So I try to think of it. I try to approach my reviews from the perspective of a general audience, while also sneaking in those really hardcore considerations where I can. Right.
Like a balance.
Yeah.
Would you say there were ever any times where your review came out and it totally disagreed with like the general consensus?
I'm trying to think. Not like on a huge sweeping level, but there are certainly things that have deviated from like what I personally thought in a review. There are certain elements that went completely the other way in other reviews. For example, in my review of the original Mega Man X Legacy Collection, there were quite a few people complaining about input lag in X1. I think it's actually, well, all four of the games, but especially the Super Nintendo games. And that wasn't something that, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty sensitive to input lag because I'm a huge rhythm game guy, but that wasn't something that I flagged in my review as something really problematic, but some other people did. Another good example is Super Monkey Ball again. My good friend and GVG co-founder, John Cartwright, that was back when he was still with Nintendo Life, and he did the review for them. And he complained, he said he liked it, but he definitely docked it a few points because he did not like there was a lack of co-op in the main mode or multiplayer in the main mode, because the original GameCube games had it where you could play up to 4 players in the main game mode, and not just the party games. Whereas I had completely forgotten about that because I didn't really have any friends, or very many friends growing up who wanted to play Monkey Ball with me. So it never even occurred to me that the multiplayer arm of the main game mode was missing. And so I said, oh, this is the best the main game mode in Monkey Ball has been in years. Nothing wrong with it. And John completely disagreed. And that's completely makes sense because he was looking at it from a different angle. And so, yeah, but I wouldn't say that there's ever been an instance where I review something and then every or most of the other reviews are completely the opposite. No.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we probably should go to our musical break for the episode right now. So stay right there. And we're going to be doing another track from Alone, and that is called Hotels for Your Heart. So enjoy that one, listeners, and we'll be back with Ash shortly. Welcome back to Pixel Pizza. You just listened to the track Hotels for Your Heart by Alone. And we are back with Ash, and we are talking more about game content creation, working on games, the whole shebang, because he's done it. And my next question was that, you know, it was a big jump for you and your co-founders to create Good Vibes Gaming and, you know, your entirely own platform. What was sort of the process like in taking that risk?
I mean, I think that it was less a process and more it was we got to do it, or else we know that we're never going to rise to any level of prominence within the GameXplain framework. If we don't leave and do this now, we're throwing away our lives, our time, because we were, basically putting in all this work for, a channel that was never going to take care of us in the way that we needed it to. We were making so little money. I mean, consider the fact that splitting our profits 4 ways now at Good Vibes Gaming, we're still making more than we ever did at GX. I certainly am.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so I think it was less of a, okay, let's figure out the process of doing this and more. It was just like, we have to do this because we're never going to have creative control. We're never going to own any of this, and we're never going to get compensated fairly for all this work we're doing. So if we're going to do all this work in this space, shouldn't it be for something we own, that's ours, that we have creative control over, that we can say, yes, that's ours. We built this and we're proud of it. And so it was just kind of I'd had the concept for Good Vibes Gaming as something rolling around in my head for a few years by that point, but I didn't know if should it be a blog? Should it be I just didn't really know. I'd had the concept in a general sense in my head, but I didn't know how to really channel that concept. And then it kind of, when it became apparent that things were never going to get better for us at GX, and in fact, they were only going to get worse, I was like, maybe, Good Vibes Gaming does really roll off the tongue, and maybe Derek and Steve would be down to launch our own thing. And so I brought up the name to them. I brought up the concept, leading with the values of inclusivity and kindness and positivity and bringing everybody into games. And they loved it. They were like, oh, GVG, Good Vibes Gaming, it rolls off the tongue. We're all about this, just leading with kindness and mental health awareness and bringing people in. Like, we're all on board with this. And so we just started all reaching out to people we know in the industry who are artists, musicians, animators, just to kind of get our brand together. And of course, we did all this in secret. It was just, it was me, Derek, and Steve doing this behind the scenes. And we commissioned various logos, various channel graphics. I reached out to a friend of mine, T. Lopes, who I'm so lucky to call a friend in the industry. And I was like, and for those listeners who may not know, he is the composer for Sonic Mania and the upcoming Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. And I'm like, I think T would be perfect in terms, if we can afford him, I think he gets would get exactly the kind of vibe we're going for here for a theme song. And sure enough, when we found out we could afford him, he's like, okay, give me like a couple of weeks. And I think I know what you're going for here. Dude had things turn around in like a couple of days and nailed it the first time. And he was like, and by the way, here are like 5 different variations you can use for different versions of it at no additional cost. And I'm like, dude he's such a great guy, And yeah, so it was just more like there wasn't really much sitting around and thinking about whether we should or shouldn't. It was okay, if we're going to do this, we got to do it now, and let's just figure it out as we go. And that's kind of what we've all been doing. We're still figuring it out as we go. And it's been nothing short of a tremendous and very scary undertaking, but I don't think it's as scary as the alternative, which was knowing that things were never going to get better and that we were going to continue to be exploited.
Right. Just, sitting where you are, you got to seize the day.
Yeah. And I mean, look, if you had told me 2 years ago that I would be a co-business owner one day, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. I've never seen myself as a business owner or a channel owner or anything like that. I usually am part of a team who, that thing belongs to somebody else, but I've never had my own thing like that. And so I was just like, I still can't believe that I'm a co-business / channel owner, but I want to be very clear. None of this could happen if it wasn't for all of us. It's not the Ash Paulsen show. It's not the any one of us show. It's absolutely a team effort. This would not happen or even be possible if I didn't have Derek, John, and Steve with me. It just wouldn't be possible. And Brandon and Daniel now. We've brought Brandon and Daniel on, and they are absolutely just as core and as important to this whole thing happening as the rest of us are. So I want to make it very clear to your listeners, this is not, I did this thing. No, we did this. And there would be no GVG without every single one of us.
Yeah, super talented group all around.
Yes. And they keep me sharp because I feel like and this is something we've been talking about a little bit, but I think some of us, and I certainly do, suffer from some level of imposter syndrome. And so I constantly, I see I have so many fans saying, "Oh, you do such a great job. You're amazing. We love you." And I'm so grateful for that every single time I hear it. But it's so hard when I'm in this group of incredibly talented people to feel like I belong there. And for a while, I thought maybe I was the only one feeling that way. But no, it turns out we've all had those thoughts and how we all feel that way about each other, which is why I think it works, right? We have so much mutual respect and affection for each other.
Yeah, you can definitely feel that in your streams and your episodes. It comes off. One of the things about GVG is that it's Patreon funded, which is, I mean, like a fairly new thing as far as like independent businesses using to get off the ground. What would you say are like some of the pros and cons of running a patron funded group?
I mean, I think definitely one of the pros is that it helps bring you closer in a personal sense to your community. One of the things I love about GVG over GX is that, at GX, it always felt like there was this divide between the talent, meaning, me and the rest of the GX staff, and the audience. And that it was like a one-way relationship where they would enjoy what we give them, and that we were somehow better or higher or somehow. And no one ever said that, but it just kind of felt like that. Whereas with GVG, it's very much a two-way conversation. Yeah, our audience is here for us, but we make it very clear that we don't see ourselves as like better than, or the talent, or, we see ourselves as just other people who love playing video games and want to bring in other people who love video games. And that it's very much a two-way conversation, very open. And so I feel like having and managing a Patreon brings you closer to your community in that sense, because these people are literally paying you to do what you do. And it's not as though there's kind of like it's not just through ad revenue, which is a lot more, or I guess a lot less direct, right? It's genuinely, they are having charges on their credit cards that go toward exactly what you're providing them. And so it makes it, I think, more personal, but also raises the stakes a little bit and makes it a little bit more nerve-wracking, because, when a video doesn't come out on time, it's not a great feeling, but it doesn't feel as though we're letting anyone specific down. But when we don't come through on a patron perk that people are paying for directly, that's like crushing guilt for me and for us. And that's one of the main things I do. We all have we all wear multiple hats and have different jobs in terms of running GVG. But one of my main things is I run the Patreon, and I track patron benefits and make sure everybody gets what they are supposed to get. And so there's a lot of anxiety and sleepless nights where I'm like, if for whatever reason we haven't been able to deliver on all of our Fight of Founder sessions in a month yet, or whatever, that makes me crazy, because I'm like, these people are paying us. We have to, but at the same time, none of us are each other's bosses, right? We are all co-founders and co-owners. So it's not as though there's a boss telling people what to do. We are all our own bosses. And so we're all colleagues. We're not, there's no hierarchy there. So, we all have busy lives, kids, families, whatever. And so that stuff doesn't always get done on time. And so I have to always kind of try to rein my own anxiety about that in, and be like, okay, no, our patrons are here because they want to be. They understand that we got families, spouses, day jobs. They totally get it. They're, calm down, Ash. You calm down. You don't need to go and try to get everybody to get their stuff done right away. So it's a different thing. It's different. It's completely different from the GameXplain experience because that wasn't my channel. So that wasn't, we didn't really have the experience of running that channel because it wasn't ours to run. But it's different when the majority of your income comes from Patreon rather than ad revenue. And so that means that your priorities have to be a little bit different. It's not as though we can take what we did at GameXplain and just apply it wholesale to Good Vibes Gaming and it works. It's a different experience completely. And so I think like I said, there's good and bad. It definitely, the guilt factor is there when you don't deliver on patron benefits because again, you're being paid directly. But I think the upshot of that is it also helps you build more personal relationships with your audience rather than there being that divide between the audience and, again, the talent. And not, your listeners can't see this, but I'm using air quotes when I say talent. I'm not calling us the talent because I think we're like that cool or anything. I'm just using that in air quotes.
Good point. Good distinction to make. How would you say you balance having full-time, or I forget if you said it was full-time, but a job outside of your content creation with creating content? How do you balance that?
Balance? What balance? There is no balance when it comes to having a full-time job on top of running or co-running a channel and a Patreon and a Discord community. There is no balance. I don't get enough sleep. It's very much one of the, and I think Steve would say the same thing. Steve and I are the ones with full-time jobs on top of GVG because GVG straight up doesn't pay the bills, doesn't make enough yet to pay the bills for all of us full-time, right? So Steve and I think he'd tell you the same thing. And he has kids. I don't even have kids. He's got kids on top of this. Oh, wow. We just don't sleep enough. We try to take care of ourselves as much as we can, but there just honestly isn't enough time in the day to hold down a day job, then do everything we need to do for GVG and have, time for our kids, our spouses, free time to play some video games, even maybe possibly. So I can't say the balance is great. I'm not going to lie. But we do our best to adhere to our principles of physical and mental health first. We never, ever put pressure on each other to burn the midnight oil or just, lose sleep. Like I don't try to lose sleep. I just, by circumstance, I just don't seem to really have enough time to get everything done. So I sacrifice sleep, but we never, ever put anyone under any pressure to take time away from family, imperil their own health. We're always about family and mental health, or physical and mental health and family first at GVG. And fortunately, we've built an audience who respect us as that as well. They don't see us as content machines. Like they see us as people who are making content they like, but they don't expect that, we just churn out content for them all day, every day, because that's not what this is. That's what GameXplain was, but that's not what this is. And we've built an audience that not only understands that, but respects that and likes that about us and encourages us to make sure we're taking care of ourselves, which I really like.
For sure, yeah, and that seems like one of the benefits of running it through Patreon is you get to have that transparency with your audience.
Yeah, exactly, and I think the expectations are clearer. They're more laid out. Again, it's just, but you do have to, and this is something that we ran into, and I've heard that a lot of other people on Patreon run into. You have to really be careful not to overpromise. And we thought that when we started, we had tiers that we could manage in terms of not overpromising anything. And we learned very quickly that even what we thought wasn't overpromising was overpromising when it actually came right down to it. So we had to do a Patreon revamp a few months after we launched and kind of reset some expectations, unpublish a few tiers that just were taking too long relative to the amount of time or the amount of money we were making from them. So it's definitely a work in progress. It's a fluid thing. And, I would recommend that anybody out there who's looking to start their own Patreon, you can always add more benefits, but it's harder to start with a bunch of benefits and then take them away. Right. So do your best not to overpromise, because it's easy to do that and start small and then add more benefits on that you think that you can handle, but just don't start big, because it always hurts more to take things away than to add things on. Right. Yeah. So yeah, and it's a very easy trap to fall into. What may at first seem like a manageable amount of work, when you're looking at it in a tier system, when you get down into it and start doing the work, you might be like, oh, wow, okay, this is actually, I don't have anywhere near enough time to do everything I need to do. So it's definitely an easy trap to fall into.
Yeah. definitely. Starting small is a better way to go.
Yeah.
Do you have any future ambitions for where you'd like to see Good Vibes Gaming go?
Man, I mean, just onward and upward. Nothing specific. I mean, we're currently experiencing a period of really fantastic growth that really bringing John back and making our circle complete really helped kickstart a new wave of growth for us. We're closing in on 100K subscribers, and so we're going to be a six-figure channel soon, which is pretty cool. Six-figure subscribers, not six-figure earnings. Maybe one day we'll see. But yeah, we're gonna hit 100K pretty soon, and we just want the growth to continue. I mean, I don't think there's anything specific that we want to see, that we want to see it go to or achieve. We just want it to achieve as much as it can. And I think the main thing for me, and I think for all of us, but particularly for me in terms of my founding concept for GVG, I feel as though amazingly, we've already kind of achieved the most important thing to me, which is offering a space for people from all walks of life to come and feel as though they belong and are empowered to be their authentic selves, whoever that is, without fear of bullying or being ostracized or anything like that, because that was always what I wanted GVG to be. That was the most important thing to me. And I've had a lot of people in our community now approach me, both online and in person now, thanks to things like PAX East, and tell me like, Ash, this thing that you guys have created, it has made a difference in my life. I feel as though I have a place to exist where I can just be me and not be bullied. And I've been, I'm bullied in every other part of my life, but here is a safe space. And thank you all so much for creating that. And that's really what I wanted from this to begin with. And that doesn't mean we're done. I want to keep bringing more people in. I want to keep letting people know, hey, this space exists and there's always room for more people as long as you're respectful and you don't bully anybody and you're chill. We want you here. And so I think the most exciting aspect of GVG continuing to grow for me, other than the idea of being able to make full-time money from it, because that would be great, the most exciting part to me is just reaching more people and reaching more people who need a space like this, who feel like they don't belong in their own lives and need a place with people who will love them and respect them for who they are. And that's all I wanted from this. And we've achieved that. So for me now, it's all just bonus time now, baby. We're just, trying to build it up bigger and bigger and take this thing that has become what we wanted it to be already and just reach more people and make it bigger and spread more happiness and spread more goodness. That's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make people happy.
That's wonderful. That's the best thing you can do. And I'm sure hearing that from people is really meaningful.
It is. It is incredibly gratifying to me as someone who, and like so many of us can relate to this. I was bullied horribly growing up. And I say that as a straight white male. If I was bullied horribly growing up, that's not even, and I went through some horrible shit growing up, but that's nothing compared to, I'm in the favored, again, air quotes, demographic, right? I can't imagine how much more difficult it is for people who are not heterosexual, white, like, the what society considers okay to be. It's so much harder for people out there in ways that I will never be able to fully relate to, that, in terms of bullying and being ostracized and systemic issues like that. And I just, because of what I went through, knowing that the version of it I went through isn't as bad as what so many people in marginalized groups experience, I just want to make it better for them as well. I want to make it better for everybody, but especially the people who face obstacles every day as, people in marginalized communities that I will never, ever have to experience myself.
Yeah, and I think it's something, when you guys were doing TNT, I always appreciated how you would find different guests every week that were from different backgrounds, different walks of life, different orientations, races, and bringing their perspective in the world of games.
That's what I want. One of the whole points of GVG is to lift up marginalized voices. And that's one of my current struggles right now with GVG is from a channel health standpoint and from a growth standpoint. sunsetting TNT and replacing it with GVG Cast once a week made sense, and it makes sense. We're doing better off. We're better off with GVG Cast once a week than we were with TNT 3 times a week. We're just better off in general. But GVG Cast also doesn't have that focus on guests that TNT did, and that is because we got a lot of feedback from people saying, "Hey, TNT is great, and your guests are cool, but like we're subscribing because we want to see the old GameXplain crew back together." You know, we feel as though always having guests on takes focus away from you guys, which is what we're subscribed for. And that's not me saying that about ourselves. That is some of the feedback we've gotten. So, but despite that, it's very important to me to figure out how we can keep highlighting people from marginalized communities. And GVG Cast isn't it, because obviously that is a show that is focused mainly on having us do a once a week podcast. But I'm still trying to figure out a way where we can replace that TNT element of having guests from different communities on the channel and highlighting them and their voices, because that's such an important aspect of what GVG is to me. And I haven't quite figured out how to replace that element of TNT yet, but it's something that is top of mind for me.
Yeah, it's, I guess, hard to find the right place right now. I should say, listeners, full disclosure, I am a patron of GVG. I've been a longtime fan. I didn't bring Ash on just to kiss his ass. But yeah, so I know a little bit about like the community and everything.
Sure. Well, and we are so happy to have you as part of our community, and thank you, of course, for all of your incredible support on Patreon, because every single one of you who helps do what we do, helps us do what we do, it means the world to us, and that includes you. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's great to see the channel growing bigger every day.
Yeah, no, we're very excited. I mean, hey, it's not even, if anything, I should be the one kissing your ass, not the other way around. Really, I'm the one that should be just, yeah, like, thank you so much. And we're constant. I feel like Steve and Derek and John and I are always constantly thanking everyone, because we couldn't do this without every single one of you in our patrons and Patreon and in our YouTube audience. It's just, we wouldn't have a reason to do it if you weren't here supporting us. So genuinely, thank you.
No problem. Absolutely. And I guess another project of yours that we didn't get the chance to talk about thus far was the show Game That Tune that you do with your dad.
Yes.
And I got to see it live once, and I thought it was really interesting sort of how you have the different generations, but also the different experiences where, like, you know, you played these video games when you were a kid or when you were reviewing them, and your dad and like the voice acting guests you have from across the industry were in the games, and they're talking about like the behind the scenes, like in the recording booth stuff. How did that come to be?
That was honestly just a show that I pitched to my dad, an idea that I pitched to my dad, and he loved it. He and I have been trying to find new ways to work together for a long time now, because ever since ShiftyLook ended. That was one of the best parts of my career, best parts of my life. We loved working together on ShiftyLook stuff, especially Bravo Man. And ever since then, we've been trying to find new ways to work together. And Game That Tune is kind of the result of those efforts. It hasn't quite gotten to, I don't think we quite know what is going to happen with it long term. It's kind of touch and go month by month with Flappers Comedy Club here in Burbank, who have been great to us. But the show's not really growing, and we're not really sure what the long-term viability of the show is. We may, at some point, make it a GVG thing. I don't know yet. But it's just, that's born from our desire to work together as a father-son duo in entertainment. And because I think we have something unique to offer there. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out how to put the pieces together to make that happen,
Totally. That was all the main questions I had for you.
Cool.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, pretty much everything. We talked a ton about Good Vibes Gaming, which is, of course, my main thing. As I've said, I do, my day job is I am a social media manager and content creator outreach specialist for Renaissance PR. And we do a lot of great PR for indie games. So if you've ever played games like The Ascent or Fix Fox just came out. It's a really cool indie game. We're working on the upcoming reboot of KO the Kangaroo. So any of those games sound interesting to you, or you've checked them out, that's us. That's our work. We're working on PR for those games. In fact, Renaissance just won an award, an MCV award, which is a British gaming awards show, for the best PR campaign of the year for 2021 for The Ascent.
Wow.
And I played some small part in that. So that's kind of cool. So definitely check out Renaissance. They're a great bunch of folks, really cool people. I'm honored to be able to work with them. They're great. They're, like I said, they're based in the UK, so I work from home for them, and they've been nothing but completely accommodating in terms of me making my own schedule and understanding that I have GVG that I'm trying to build. They totally support me in that. So Renaissance, just a great bunch of folks there. Certainly check out, some of the titles we have done PR for. And I guess that's really it for me. Just please keep loving and caring about what we do at GVG. We will keep doing our best to be worthy of that love and that care and that attention. So we're just going to keep doing what we do as best we can, and just bring happiness through GVG to as many people as possible.
That's the best you can ask for.
Exactly.
So I lied. I have one more question. And
okay, let's go for it.
Because this is the Pixel Pizza podcast, what is your favorite pizza place?
Ooh, there's a chain. I say here. I mean, you're here too, so there's a chain called Fresh Brothers that I really like.
Oh yeah, they're so good.
They do deep dish pizza, and it's a bit expensive for sure, but man, their deep dish pizza, I get pepperoni, onions, garlic, and extra sauce, and it's just the most delicious pizza. Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah, I don't think I've gotten their deep dish. I get their totally flat pizza.
Okay.
But it's still really good.
You can't go wrong either way.
Yeah. Super convenient.
You can't go wrong with pizza either way, though. The right answer to pizza is always yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks so much for joining me, Ash. Oh,
thank you.
I should ask, where can people find you?
Well, as I said, as we've been talking about, you can find me on Good Vibes Gaming on YouTube and on Patreon, and on Twitter. You can also find me personally on Twitter at my name, which is Ash Paulsen, ASHPAULSEN. And follow me I mainly just tweet about video games, food, dogs, and video game music, and some combination of all four of those things. I mainly just talk about all four of those. So if you like any or all of those, you should definitely follow me on Twitter. I do my best to respond to as many people as I can. And, I just try to keep my Twitter as full of good vibes as I do Good Vibes Gaming. So yeah, definitely check us out everywhere. And, even if you can't support us on Patreon, we totally get that. But if you could check out the channel, maybe subscribe, drop us some likes and some videos, that means the world to us as well. So it isn't just about Patreon or bust. Even if you just sub to us on YouTube, that means just as much.
Great. Yeah, I second that. Not a shill.
Well, thank you so much again for all your support, man, and for inviting me to be on this podcast. I know it took a little while. We were trying to do this in April, but then PAX East happened. It's just been busy, but I'm back now, and I appreciate you being so patient with me.
Totally, yeah. It's been. I remember I was saying at a little bit earlier before I was recording that I had tried to have you on 7 years ago when I was doing the show at college in Boston. Yeah, we tried to make it work, and then when it did work, there were all these technical difficulties in the studio, and I could hear you, but it was all coming through all weird. It sounded like some alien frequency. But yeah, now we get you in full crystal clear audio. So.
Hell yeah. Well, hopefully the wait was worth it. And it's an honor to be here and to chat with you. And I hope your audience enjoys this interview. I hope they have found this to be as entertaining as I have.
Thanks. Likewise. And now we are gonna end out the episode with our final track from Alone, and that is called the Mastery of Empty Fiction Award. I'm not sure what that title means, but listen to the song and we shall find out. So thank you for tuning in to Pixel Pizza this week, and we will be back next week with another exciting guest, more exciting chip tunes. You won't want to miss it. Bye-bye.